Welcome to Rio Bravo, Fresno, a biomass power generation facility. In the next few minutes, we would like to tell you about a few basic rules, policies, and hazards at our facility. Because protecting your safety and the environment are our top priorities, we require that all outside contractors complete our safety and environmental orientation briefing. Please pay close attention to our plant's rules and regulations. Any violation can result in you or your company being restricted from the premises. As a result, payment will only be made for work completed up to the time of restriction. A valid driver's license is required to operate any vehicle on the grounds of the plant, as well as proof of training related to the operation of any specialized mobile equipment. The speed limit is 15 miles per hour unless pedestrians are present, in which case it's 5 miles per hour. Only vehicles with parking passes or company work vehicles will be allowed on site. During outages, contractor parking will be identified. When you arrive on the plant site, we will ask you or someone from your company to sign in everyone in your work crew in the control room, which is located in the administration building. We will ask you to follow this procedure every day, since it is important for us to account for all contracted personnel on site. As a contract employee of Rio Bravo Fresno, we will require you to wear a hard hat, safety glasses with side shields, and steel-toed footwear that meets OSHA requirements. In addition to the standard PPE, additional protective equipment must be worn when performing welding, grinding, burning, or work on electrical circuits. As a contractor, you are also responsible for complying with all federal, state, and local regulations, including but not limited to OSHA and the EPA. Smoking is not permitted in any building at this site. However, we do have designated smoking areas located outside the very front gate, in the designated parking lot area, and outside the control room where you will find suitable containers for disposing your cigarettes. Under no circumstances is smoking allowed in the fuel storage area. Each day prior to starting work, a safe work permit must be filled out in the control room and will be signed by the control room operator, who will answer any questions you might have to fill out this form correctly. One copy of this form will be kept in the control room, and one will be given to you to have at the work site. Before leaving work at the end of the day, you must sign off on this form as you signed on that morning. While completing this safe work permit, the job foreman and control room operator will decide if the system or component lockout/tagout will be required. If a lockout is required, a personal lock is mandatory for every individual involved in the job. The job foreman and anyone performing the work can review the lockout for the system they are working on. Prior to performing the work, the foreman will review the safe work permit with the crew of that specific job. All personnel will attach a personal lock to the gang locking devices for that lockout. One man, one lock. At the end of the job or at the end of the shift, the foreman will release the safe work permit and all personnel will remove their personal locks. As you complete the safe work permit, it may also be determined that a confined space permit or a hot work permit will be required. Before any hot work is to be performed, a hot work permit must be issued. A hot work permit is good for 12 hours or the end of the shift, whichever comes first. Hot work includes welding, cutting with a torch, grinding, or any spark-producing activity. The contractor is required to provide a qualified fire watch during the hot work and for a period of time after the hot work has been completed to verify there is no possibility of fire. Welding in well-traveled areas requires the use of curtains to prevent eye injuries of other employees. Proper ventilation is also another consideration, and it's important to know the characteristics of the materials you're working with. Burning galvanized metal, for instance, can give off hazardous smoke and gases which can be harmful if inhaled. All permits, including hot work permits, will be issued in the control room by the control room operator or a designee on a daily or per shift basis, depending on the nature and scope of the work. If entry into a permit confined space is required, we require the contractor to abide by all appropriate OSHA rules and regulations. It is the responsibility of the contractor to ensure all employees at the job site are trained in confined space entry and all documentation is retained and available for review by all Rio Bravo Fresno personnel. The contractor is required to verify that an attendant is outside of the work area to maintain communications as necessary and provide assistance without entering the space. Communication must be maintained verbally or by two-way radio. The confined space permit is good for a period of 12 hours or less depending on the classification of the space being entered and the nature of the work being performed. After that time, the atmosphere must be tested again. As a contractor, you are expected to bring all required tools and equipment to the plant site. In addition to signing on to the necessary permits, it may also be necessary to give the approval of the control room operator to get permission for hooking up your machines. A qualified staff technician will be happy to accompany you to any one of the numerous welding receptacles installed throughout the plant. At no time is the contractor allowed to either open or close valves or electrical breakers or change the status of any equipment without the knowledge of the control room operator. One of the best safety guidelines around is common sense. If you believe what you are attempting is unsafe, talk with your supervisor and devise a better method. Also be advised that any Rio Bravo Fresno staff member is authorized to stop your work if they feel it's unsafe. Now that we've reviewed the rules and regulations of our plant, let's take a look at some of the potential safety hazards you might find here to produce electricity. At our plant, we use a combination of high-pressure, high-temperature process piping containing air, water, natural gas, and steam. The pressures range from a full vacuum to greater than 1500 psi, with temperatures ranging from ambient to well over 1700 degrees Fahrenheit. Most of the piping that can cause thermal injuries is insulated, but there are still exposed metal components that have the potential to cause injury. Please do not touch or grab non-insulated piping or valves until you know its temperature first. At Rio Bravo Fresno, we have many types of acids, solvents, and water treatment chemicals on site in large quantities. A hazardous material label marks these chemical tanks. Safety data sheets are available on request. If you are dealing with these chemicals, please be sure to use caution and wear all required clothing, including suits, gloves, and face shields. We cannot emphasize enough how important it is to be careful. Preventing pollution to the environment through the plant's stormwater system is a very important part of any job. Chemicals and oils should be stored away from the stormwater drains and runoff areas to prevent accidental spills and chemical releases. Prevent dirt or debris from blocking drainage channels and make sure that sediment and erosion control measurements are used whenever your work requires excavation or if the soil is disturbed. If necessary, you must also obtain the required permits for this kind of work. Another hazardous chemical we have on site is anhydrous ammonia. The tank is located south of the boiler structure adjacent to the paved road. If an alarm sounds or an announcement is made over the intercom system of a leak, you should leave the area immediately and go to the evacuation area specified by the control room operator. The evacuation areas are located at the front gate of the plant and the northeast corner of the site east of the cooling tower. Windsocks are located on the west end of the ammonia storage tank and on the north side of the boiler structure on the water storage tank. You need to be aware of the direction of the wind and always make your way upwind away from the leak. Exposure to anhydrous ammonia can lead to immediate severe burns and instantaneous blindness. Equipped with a very sensitive ammonia detection device, the system sends out a loud alarm even if the slightest leak is detected. In the event you become exposed to anhydrous ammonia, you should go to the nearest eye wash safety shower and wash off the affected area for at least 15 minutes. Please speak with a Rio Bravo Fresno employee for the location of the nearest eye wash safety shower near your work area. Every vendor or contractor is required to provide a material safety data sheet for any material they bring on the job site, no exceptions. The contractor is also responsible for disposal of hazardous wastes or chemicals brought onto the site or hazards that may have been created during the course of the contracted work. In order to maintain a safe and clean workplace, proper handling and storage of hazardous materials is essential. To prevent a spill or release to the environment, all chemical containers and drums must be properly labeled, closed, and stored within secure, weatherproof storage facilities having adequate secondary containment. Secondary containment is also required when using portable equipment containing oil or chemicals. You should conduct frequent inspections of the oil and chemical storage containers as required by our plant. The contractor is also held responsible for the cleanup of the work area. Good housekeeping is a must prior to, during, and at the completion of the job. Before starting any work at this power station, you should be aware of its environmental permits and their applicability to the type of work you are conducting. You should discuss any potential issues with the appropriate site personnel prior to starting your work. If the work you are conducting has the potential for fugitive emissions, review the site-specific requirements for Rio Bravo, Fresno. When applicable, control dust and other particulate emissions through use of best management practices or as required by the plant's environmental permits. This could include wetting, installation of windscreens or enclosures, or use of specialized collection equipment during abrasive blasting. Environmental stewardship and compliance with our environmental permits is extremely important to Rio Bravo, Fresno. Contractors are required to continually monitor their on-site work to ensure that it is being conducted in compliance with environmental requirements and our high expectations. Be aware of any sensitive environmental resources that must be protected, like wetlands, threatened or endangered species, waterways, or sensitive receptors in the area. Discuss any of these issues with your Rio Bravo Fresno representative prior to starting a job. Contractors are required to maintain and provide copies of any environmental records specifically required in our contracts, like waste manifest, inspection forms, etc. Finally, make sure to maintain your equipment in good working condition. If equipment is leaking fuel, lubricants, or other chemicals, or if it is emitting excess emissions or making excessive noise, it must be removed from service and repaired prior to use at this facility. As with many industrial settings, there are always fire hazards present. The primary source for fire is in the wood fuel storage area. Extreme caution should be used when performing any work in this area. Hot work permits and fire watch is required. This is a no smoking area. In addition to the wood fuel, our plant uses natural gas as a secondary fuel source. If you suspect a natural gas leak, no matter how small, stop all work in the area immediately and notify the control room. If any hot work is to be performed on any natural gas piping, it must be first purged with compressed air or an inert gas such as nitrogen. Any procedure such as this must first be discussed with the control room operator and approved before work can begin. Another hazard, high voltage electricity, is an ever-present fact of life at Rio Bravo, Fresno. All high voltage sources are clearly labeled. They can only be worked on with the proper permits and clearances. Do not open any electrical cabinets or open or close any electrical breakers without the permission of the control room operator. Now that you've seen and heard our safety briefing, we'll ask you to sign our safety contractor briefing form, stating that you have seen and understand all of our safety regulations at this facility. If you have any questions, please ask the Rio Bravo Fresno employee nearest you. We thank you for your time and hope that you will have a safe and productive working experience at Rio Bravo Fresno.